Hi. Yeah, my name is Tianren
Sure.
Yang, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate in urban modeling at the University of Cambridge. I'm also convener of Cambridge Applied Urban Modeling Symposium Series, or AUM. So on behalf of the scientific committee and my fellow conveners of AUM, I'd like to welcome you all to this online global workshop session on city analytics. So the idea of this online workshop is to invite colleagues who are dedicated to developing new urban analyses and modeling to address the increasingly complex urban challenges. As you may have already noted in our session schedule, so actually the format of this workshop is quite experimental, as we have a very ambitious plan to run a one-day, 20-hour event in order to cover most of the time zones across the world. Dr. Jieling, as the lead convener, has kicked off the workshop with an inspiring session given by Professor Chris Petit and his colleagues in Australia. In this session, we'd like to continue our discussion on the topic of city analytics, but move to the context of China and East Asia. But apart from the time zone transition, it's also worth noting that in this session, we are moving from academic-based research towards more practice-oriented, real-life projects. So all the three speakers are from the local startup companies or labs focusing on urban big data analytics. Before I hand over to our session chair, Professor Mao, there are several quick points to note on the format and the timing of the session. So first, the session is run in the Zoom meeting format, so which means actually every delegate can communicate directly with any other or with the whole panel. And second, if you'd like to ask questions, you can either raise your hand via Zoom, or you can just drop your questions into the chat box. And this session will finish 5 minutes before the end of the second hour. So this is to allow time for the changeover to the next session. Now it's time and my great pleasure to introduce our session chair, Professor Chichu Mao. He is Professor of Urban Planning and Design at the School of Architecture at Tsinghua University. Professor Mao is also a leading figure in China, who applies both conventional and emerging technologies to look for spatial solutions that support sustainable urban and rural development. I will now hand over to Professor Mao to introduce the session as well as our speakers and discussant. Professor Mao, over to you.
Thank you for Dr. Tianren Yang, and also hello for every participant. I'm very glad to get the invitation from Yinjing and from the Cambridge. I think today we are connected the whole world from Beijing, Shanghai, and to the Cambridge, UK. And I also saw many other friends from like Hong Kong or from other places joining us. And today the topic is modeling the new urban world. And especially in China, we have the fast development, and we have many interested new urban data. And I think today we have three very nice presenter. And these three speakers come from three different but very famous practice company in China in urban area. Maybe my responsible is first to introduce these three speakers. The first will be the Jieling is a consulting director, come from the Rising Lab, CBN. CBN means China Business Network. And for this new lab, they did very well the urban data, and they published a lot of reports year by year, and the details, I think Ms. Che will give a presentation afterwards. The second speaker will Frank Zhao. Frank Zhao he's a project manager from the Shanghai MetroData technology. It's another famous smart city research company, and they may have a lot of planning background in Shanghai. I think Professor Han will know them more than me. And the third speaker is Haokun Fu. He's a director of a planning consulting department from a Beijing UrbanXYZ technology company. And they have a very strong urban planning background. It's originally come from the Beijing Urban Planning and Research Institute, and the chief person is Mr. Mao Mingrui, and we know him very much, and he did a lot of interesting urban survey and gave us interesting the results. And I think today Mr. Fu will special introduce the local community issue, because he also one of the community duty planner of Shuangjing neighborhood in Beijing. This community duty planner is a new thing in China, and recent 2 years it's worked very well and very successful. And today we special invite the discussant is Professor Haixiao Pan from the Tongji University. It's old friend of mine, also old friend with Dr. Yin Jing, and I even don't remember how many years we know each other, and we joined the conference and academic studies in many different places. And today I'm very happy in this special moment we can meet together. And I think that's my very brief introduction, and I hope this and wish we have 3 very successful presentations. Thank you. Hello, Yang.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mao. So should we first invite our first speaker, Jieling from the Rising Lab, to share her screen and to share her latest findings, if we can, if the voice connection is okay now. Jieling, over to you.
No, we can't hear you.
It's still muted.
Hello.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, that's good. Okay, so I will share the screen.
Yes, it's the green button at the bottom of your Zoom window.
You see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Jieling. I'm from Shanghai. It's a great honor for me to be here today to share my work with you. My topic is about 3 keywords that describe the growing trends of Chinese cities that we observe from big data. That's breakthrough, diversity, and innovation. First of all, I want to introduce the team I've been working with. We're called the Rising Lab, a research institute focusing on data analysis. And we belong to the financial media group, China Business Network in Shanghai. We provide a number of different consulting services and interesting products that are based on the analysis of data derived from the internet. And our customer range from urban governor, urban researcher, to the general public, or just anybody who is interested in urban topic. Previously, people normally evaluate a city from the official data and on the traditional perspective of GDP or population. However, what we want to do is trying to find a novel way that can better measure people's genuine perception of the cities they live in. Because of this, we create our own evaluation methodologies that we believe are more sensible, more straightforward, and more comprehensive. In 2013, our team put forward the term new first-tier city for the first time in China, referring to the cities that are most likely to enter the first tier as in the Chinese classification system. Following this, our team we managed to establish a set of evaluation system with 5 primary criteria. That's index of concentration of commercial resource, city as a hub, urban residence activity, lifestyle diversity, and future potential. All the data comes from the top internet companies in China, such as Alibaba, which is the most well-known company in the field of e-commerce, Tencent, the company owning WeChat and dominating the chatting app market in China, Didi, the widely used Uber-like app, TikTok, the fastest growing social media in recent years that has now become globally recognizable, and many, many more others alike. Ever since 2016, we have consecutively launched an annual ranking of Chinese cities for 5 years. 2016 marked the first year when we provided a clear definition of the meaning of new first tier. And at the same time, a whole-scale assessment of the total 337 cities in China by means of big data. In the year followed, we discovered a previously less visible, but actually quickly rising city with blooming urban economy, Dongguan, located in the southern frontier of the country. In 2018, we found that Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen that appeared as official order of first-tier cities had now turned into Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou by our evaluation methods, revealing a constantly competing characteristic of these 4 most developed cities in China. A year later, another new city entered into the new first-tier list. That was Kunming, the capital of Yunnan province, representing the growth of those cities in the West, which act as transport hubs. Ranking of last year showed another 2 fresh new first-tier cities, which are Hefei in Anhui province and Foshan in Guangdong province. After introducing the general ranking of Chinese cities in the past 5 years, I would like to explain the 3 keywords I mentioned before to describe the growing trend: breakthrough, diversity, and innovation. First, breakthrough means the rapid rise of those central cities in Western China. China has long been displaying an East-West disparity, with the East being comparatively more developed and the West more deprived. Owing to the policy promoted by the government 2 decades ago on the opening up of the Western region China, a number of cities led by Chengdu, Chongqing, Xi'an, and Kunming are demonstrating a thriving prospect. From the angle of urban life, all these cities have high level of commercial prosperity. The total volume of pedestrian flow in cities have reached to over 1 million every day. Also, young people living in these cities have a large variety of choices in terms of social life and nightlife. Chongqing and Chengdu rank the top 2 among all Chinese cities in the level of TikTok user activity. There are also quite large numbers of pubs and live houses in these 2 cities. Moreover, you can also find a lot of different cafes, bookstores, and sport facilities in these cities. People are very keen to all kinds of music and sports activities. Combining data from the recent years, we found that these cities, among all others in China, have shown a general rising trend and have now become very stable on the list of new first tier. The second keyword is diversity. I use this to specially refer to the very differentiated routes of development that we found in the 15 new first tier cities. Still using the examples of the Western city, Chengdu, Chongqing, and Xi'an, we can see that these cities have already built strong images on social media, evident in the substantial geotagged places and the located based video views that take up the top 3 cities of the whole China and 40% of the hot videos searched. Chongqing is well known for its distinctive urban landscape as a mountain city. Chengdu has strong atmosphere for all kinds of commercial and creative activities. Xi'an, on the other hand, is a city famous for its historical legacy. The new cultures are cultivated alongside the conversation of the traditional ones, leading to a characteristic urban image. Apart from these, other new first-tier cities are also show their own features that interest people. For example, you can find a lot of cultural and touristic activities in cities like Hangzhou and Suzhou, including the large amounts of concerts, operas, and other forms of performance. Cultural and creative resource has now become a significant part to assess the position of a city and a crucial dimension of its soft power. From the perspective of business, we make some comparisons among the most important business spaces in the few new first tiers. There are Chengdu, Chongqing, Hangzhou, and Xi'an. As can be seen from the chart, the business structure of Hangzhou is particularly user-friendly, evident in the large number of cafes, bubble tea shops, and the children business. People under 30s contribute to the biggest proportion of the total visitor by age, in nearly half of the business spaces in the city. However, for cities like Hefei, Foshan, and Dongguan, the rapid rise of the innovative industries has been the major driving force for urban growth, and has therefore fulfilled the gaps needed by the working and the living population. Last but not least, innovation. This is the third keyword I want to emphasize on the trend of the rising cities. It means that in China, more and more new emerging industries are agglomerating in the core city clusters. This is a map showing the spatial distribution of technology industries in China. As we can see from it, a huge amount of tech companies are clustering in the Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei region, the Yangtze River Delta, and the Pearl River Delta, which are the 3 most important city clusters in China. For the 8 new emerging industries, next generation IT technology, high-end equipment, new materials, new energy, environmental protection, new medicine, big data, and industrial internet, first-tier and new first-tier cities are still preferred places for these industries to locate. At the same time, you can also see obvious clustering of enterprises in Yangtze River and the Pearl River Delta. Among all the new first-tier cities, Tianjin, Suzhou, and Dongguan have the most innovative industries in number. These cities are normally divided into subzones of central downtowns, new towns, or a few other functional parts. Innovative industries are able to drive in the growth of the new towns in the city, and thus leading to more population and more public facilities. Data from recruiting website shows that the new first-tier cities in China are gradually taking place to first-tier cities. New first-tier cities are becoming favored places chosen by an increasing number of local as well as overseas graduates for both a name of living and starting their own business. On the contrary, we can see that the traditional first-tier cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen are to some extent losing their attractiveness to talents. That's the most up-to-date trend that we can observe from the big data in Chinese cities. Last, I would like to introduce the website of our team, 3w.datayikai.com, which is our database platform with open data and visualized presentation. You can find more urban data as well as Chinese city stories on it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jieling, for your very excellent presentation. And actually, it had a lot of rich information that we can discuss further. Professor Mao, if we invite, say, if there are any clarification questions, we can take. And for the audience, please just drop in your questions into the chat box, or you can just start your video and unmute yourself if you have like questions for clarification. If not, we will just move to the next speaker because we'd like to have the 3 presentations first, and then we will have like the Q&A and discuss and the comments from our discussant. So
I saw one person, Shanshan Xie, maybe you want to have a question or comment? Because Shanshan Xie, and I saw the second one, Hayashi Labora also raising hand. It could be allow them say a few sentences.
yeah, sure. So if Yoshi or Shanshan you'd like to show up, you just unmute yourself. If not sure, because I didn't monitor the whole screen of all participants very carefully. So I probably missed the hand raising by one of our participants. So anyhow, we can leave these questions to the end of the third speakers and of his presentation. So Professor Mao, if we're okay,
Yes.
so
Yes,
we,
okay.
yeah, shall we move
Okay.
to our next speaker, Frank Zhao? Over to you.
Oh, all right. So you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, let me share my screen. All right. Thank you very much. My name is Frank Zhao, and I'm a project manager at the Shanghai MetroData Tech. We are a urban data company provides data systems and services mostly to the governments and the real estate developers in China. I actually changed a bit of my topic today. Today's topic is Hangzhou's city brain, more than just a technological reform. By preparing this presentation, I actually asked many of my friends some basic questions. Questions like, what do they think of smart city? What's in their mind when they hear this term? The feedbacks I got are mostly 2 types of impression. Many people would mention the term 1984. They probably, they talk about a possible dystopia society with high-tech surveillance that monitors ordinary citizens without any freedom. Others would look forward to a highly efficient city that solves all the problems we currently have, from, let's say, from traffic jam to affordable housing, probably even without a government. So all these feedbacks have some similarities. The impression of smart city is very vague. There's no clear description of how a smart city should work. And the ideas are still far away from our today's reality. And they tend to focus on the technology side of the story. Indeed, beside the narrative of technology changes our life, there's another side of the story deserves to be mentioned. This is the story of reforms in governance. This is why we have to talk about Hangzhou's city brain project. Hangzhou is one of the earliest practitioners. Hangzhou is the earliest practitioners of smart cities in China, and it's been seen as the model city in the field. And of course, another reason is that our company is deeply involved in many of the projects there. So, and I believe to observe and study Hangzhou city brain gives us a better idea of what's really going on in China and why reforms of governance is important. Hangzhou's journey of smart city started in 2016. It was initially focusing on traffic problems. Therefore, it was initially called the traffic brain. In 2018, the municipal government decided to expand the project into a citywide full-scale smart city project called the City Brain. So the City Brain is supposed to deal with all major aspects of urban issues in our daily life. In 2020, the project has reached out to the lowest level of the government in order to deal with the pandemic. Sorry. So in the past few years, the City Brain has provided a lot of new services and applications to make citizens' life easier. But there has also been a lot of changes and reforms behind the scene. The first change is the struct change in bureaucracy. We know that the most fundamental thing to construct a smart city is to collect and integrate different sources of data, especially those data from different government departments, which means someone or some organization has to be the coordinator. Therefore, in 2017, the city of Hangzhou formed a new department. The official name of the department is Hangzhou Data Resources and Administration Bureau, as known as the Bureau of Big Data. The Bureau of Big Data, its job is to coordinate data resources inside of the municipality, set up standards and goals for the smart city projects, lead the digitalization process of the city, responsible for the construction of all data platforms. In other words, the Bureau acts like a whip of parliamentary politics to push projects forward and bring different players together, make sure they are on the same page. Sometimes it acts as like an examiner to set up goals and evaluate results. And lastly, as a technical supporter to help governments to develop their projects. The second reform is basically by constructing the city brain, there's a change in governing perspective. So when we talk about bureaucracy, what do we have in our minds? People will always say, okay, all the bureaucrats around the world, they prefer stability. In other words, there's always a lack of willingness to take any risk. Sorry, but there's a change now. In Hangzhou, the city leaders encourage its public servants to be more creative. The government is willing to allow some degree or certain amount of project failures from its officials. But the bottom line is integrity and no corruption. The leaders want their officials to think like a startup, think of the citizens like app users. So how do you make the most helpful application that solves your users a real urgent urban problem? That's the new mentality now, from a ruler to a product manager, from making things as usual to try to please your customers. Here are some examples. This is Welfare Direct. In Chinese, it's called 民生直达. So it's basically a data platform deal with all sorts of welfare problems. It gives money to qualified citizens directly. So what does that mean? If you are a person under the poverty line, the government gives you a certain amount of money. In Hangzhou, that's about 1,000 yuan. In the past, let's say if you move your home from one place to another, one district to another, you have to sign a new application form with all your documents and IDs. Then you give your application to a social worker. The social worker will help you to transfer your welfare status to the new district. But you have to remember the social worker takes care of around 400 people. She has to assess and approve more than 300 documents per month. She has to follow up for more than 500 application procedures per month. Once your application is approved, the new district has to inform your previous district, so both districts can update their welfare list. In other words, there will be a payment delay for sure. You probably have to go through many different procedures to get your money. Imagine you need this money to survive. That's not a very people-friendly system. Now with the welfare direct system, all you need to do is take a photo of your rent contract and your ID, then upload them to the system. There will be no further running around the governments, the banks. There will be no delay of payment as well, since all the data and information are connected and percepted in one system. The second example is called the 30 seconds check-in. This is the new check-in system for hotels in Hangzhou. Traditionally, we let's say if we book a room, we go to the then we go to the reception. We give them our IDs. They will record our ID information, which eventually goes to the police system. Then we will receive our room card. It takes about 5 to 6 minutes. With the new 30-second system, after booking a room, you simply just go to a machine, scan your ID, then you will receive your room card. Throughout the process, not only it's faster, but it also reduces the times of revealing your personal IDs to others. The third change, which is related to the second one, since the governing perspective has changed, the standards to evaluate government's performance have also changed as well. In the past, evaluation of an official or a department's job probably may not be very quantitative. Sometimes they simply summarize their work into a profile in order to present what they have achieved in a period of time. Now, at least for the work related to smart city or the city brain, the evaluation is highly quantitative. Also, the government started to emphasize the concept of having a data mine. For example, in the past, when we talk about traffic problems of a city, they talk about numbers such as how many vehicles a city has in total. Now, they look at a different number, a more relevant number, such as numbers of in-transit vehicles within a period of time. In the past, government cared much about the concept of congestion index. Basically, within an area at a particular moment, how many roads are congested. Now, Hangzhou looks at a very different index, the delay index, which uses time as the base of calculation. Let's say from point A to point B, ideally with no other vehicle at all, it takes, let's say it takes about 10 minutes. Now at 5 p.m., it takes about 30 minutes. Then the delay is about 20 minutes. Instead of ranking the congestion situation, Hangzhou ranks the time of the delay to evaluate the situation on the street as a whole. These are the major problems. These are the major reforms in governance. We can see there are many progressive things happening there, but we still have to be very critical and careful of what's going on in Hangzhou, even though our company has a lot of business interests there. There are two major concerns of the current reform. First, by having the new power structure, new way of doing business in government, sometimes we might witness ambiguities between power and responsibility. For example, the smart city projects usually involve different players from business to government. Within government, many times these projects are cross departments. If things go wrong, who should be responsible for different kinds of problems? Sometimes the boundary is clear. Other times, there's no clear division of responsibilities. Instead, the related laws and acts are a little bit behind right now, although the government is really trying to catch up. Secondly, citizens do care about their privacy. Currently, there's no clear explanation to the public how people's private data will be protected, or there's not often enough explanations. We know many smart city projects involve companies to participate, such as our company, and these projects have access to many personal data. Is there a model or mechanism designed to avoid a data leak crisis? We haven't heard much about it. I asked one official in Hangzhou, according to him, for the projects that involve business partners, his department doesn't share any information of individuals to them. Nonetheless, we still believe that if there are plans to protect our data, there should be a more clear and more often demonstration in the media or from the government. And I remember in Toronto, there's a famous sidewalk project there, eventually got pulled down last year. And there are many reasons for the shutdown. One of the major reasons is that citizens of Toronto were not satisfied with the sidewalk's explanation of who eventually owns the data and how the company or the government is going to use the data. So at the end, let's get back to the original question. Why many of my friends or why people don't have a clear vision when asked about smart city, and why many times they simply don't feel their city is smart. I believe we don't feel it because the whole process of smart city is slow and will be slow. It's a process of interactions and integrations between technology and politics. There will be checks, balance, stimulations between the two sides. When we look back to 1990, is our city smarter today? I believe the answer is yes. Probably we would feel the same in 2050. Smart city is a process of gradual awakening, to borrow the term from Zen Buddhism, rather than a sudden awakening. Right now, we still don't know the end game for smart city. What does it look like when it's complete, as if there's such a thing called completion. Despite the slowness, the unknown future, we still understand the principal goal of smart city. It's about use big data and technology to efficiently manage our urban resources, to make the city more relevant to its citizens' personal needs. Maybe a smart bus routine to make your kids able to sleep 30 minutes more every day. Or maybe it's to make the tourists able to spend more time of having fun rather than waiting in the lineups. I hope the case of Hangzhou's city brain is helpful in terms of understanding the current situation in China. I believe there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of concerns to worry. A bright future is never guaranteed, but required all of us to be more thoughtful. And that's all. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Frank, for very, very insightful talks regarding the smart cities. I actually have two questions from the audience, although they send that to me in private mode. So one question is directly from our Cambridge colleague, Dr. Zhao Fang. So he asked that he wants a clarification about the project that you mentioned. So is it like the project that is conducted by the Alibaba Demo Academy, or is that the project implemented by your company?
Oh, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. Initially, let's say back in 2019, when I talked about the traffic brain, it's mostly done by the Alibaba. Later on, different companies participated, and it's like many other projects in other places. For example, in some cases, let's say IBM provides IoT stuff, right? They provide hardware, and some other solution companies provide solution and consulting and other softwares. So it's a combination of different companies cooperate with the government. So we are one player of the whole of the big picture, and we actually participate in many small projects inside of Hangzhou.
Yeah, so basically, who is leading the whole project?
Who is leading the? I would say the government is leading the project, especially in China.
Mm-hmm. But actually, the different companies, how do they collaborate with each other? Or actually, they just work on their own parts rather than collaborate?
It's really case by case. Sometimes there's a leading company. Maybe they provide hardware, or maybe they be the coordinator to bring different companies together. Most of the other times, it's really the government who's the leading figure, who does all the cooperations.
Yeah, That's very helpful in terms of clarification. So, Professor Mao, should we invite our last speaker of the session? Yes, Roderick Fu from the UrbanXYZ. As Professor Mao has already introduced, actually, UrbanXYZ technology operation is based in Beijing. Yeah. So over to you, Haokun, to share work in Beijing, I think, the community, right?
Okay. Sorry, today's network in my office is not very stable, but we are a technology company, so it will solve the problem. So I try to connect the best network, but if there are some problems of my networks, please interrupt me and I will try to make it better. So I will share my screen. So hi everyone. It's been an honor to be invited in this session to share our practice on smart governance in the community level. My name is Haokun Fu. You can call me Roderick. I'm from Beijing UrbanXYZ technology company. UrbanXYZ is founded in 2016. We are hatched from the Beijing Planning and Design Institute. Since we founded, our main business focused on the urban data and urban modeling area. We try to support the big data evaluation and the urban governance, especially in the neighborhood and the community scale, because we have many ideas about how to do the data governance in the neighborhood and the community scale. The case I'm going to share today is the main project we focused since the last year, 2019. We were deeply involved in the practice of the community governance of Shuangjing neighborhood in Chaoyang, Beijing. We involve it as the community duty planner. It's also a big majority policy in Beijing planning range in the last few years. On the 2019 July, Shuangjing neighborhood was selected by UN Habitat as the International Sustainable Development Pilot Community. It's the first such community level pilot of its kind from China. Under the requirement of the pilot, Shuangjing need to improve the building environment and to achieve the social, economic, and environmental sustainability by community governance. The main target of this pilot is based on the SDG 11, Sustainable City and Communities. It listed 7 goals on sustainable communities. From this requirement, we can easily observe many values specific suggested, such as inclusive, volatility, participation, and like polluting management, such kind. So the target is clear. So as the duty planner at the beginning of the practice, we did evaluation by big data first to quantize the level on these 7 aspects of SDG 11 for Shuangjing. So after the evaluation, based on the evaluation result, our team and the neighborhood office, we discuss intensely to carry out an action plan with 18 projects. So it basically both answer the requirement of SDG 11 and fit the duty of a neighborhood or a community. So it's 18 of them. And we deeply involved on most of the projects. The main method of our practice is composed by 2 parts. The first part is the smart governance and second part is participatory governance. So for the smart governance, we developed, we think is the first neighborhood brain in Beijing, which mainly designed for the smart governance on the neighborhood scale. We developed many functions and provide variable kind of operational ends, such as dashboard, PC, mobile, or car pad, this kind. So it attempted to cover the different groups of staffs in Shuangjing neighborhood office and try to improve the operational efficiency of the administrative resources, special resources, and social service resources. So for the participatory governance, we try to build an ecological system of participatory on a participatory governance. So the core of this governance is the thinking tank of local voices. So these are the people who have resources, who have knowledge, and who have enthusiastics to participate in the community level job. And so these people make a group, we call them well digger, 挖井人, because Shuangjing is the double digger, double well. So so if we after in this year, after we look back the 18 projects, all the projects are either supported by the smart governance and also supported by the participatory governance. So considering the topic of this session and the time limit, today's topic talk will mainly focus on the smart governance practice today. In order to build a neighborhood brand, we make a lot of efforts on data management, try to introduce big data by open data, by sensors, and by the data gathering tools. And we try to understand the data from the different sub-offices and try to make the data cleaning and try to give them the curious, the process location and the label, and we put all the data in the data center. Our projects, we call it B-Nest because all our projects are named like animals. So we also call it XYZ Zeus. So under the support of several algorithms and modeling, 4 functions are finally provided. The first function is the activity monitoring. The platform can monitor various activities on the block and update on the platform real-timely, like the population, the environment, the complaint cases. In Beijing is the major hotline called 12345, and also the community activities. The platform could update the evaluation result of the sustainable development level to reflect their working effects. So we will automatically calculate the result every day, every week, every month, and make a report on their table. And we also will show the result on the dashboard. So thirdly, the platform can provide different algorithms and modelings to stimulate the quality of planning on public service and neighborhood renewal projects. So all the projects can run in our system or our brain and to give them a result about the quality and the effectiveness. And finally, after the projects are made, the decisions are made. So in the implementation phase, the platform update the information and the process of the project real-timely. So under the support of these functions, several outputs are generated under the various governance scenarios. So I'll give some examples. In the aspect of refined management, we create a mobile environmental monitoring system by installing a sensor on an urban management patrol car, So the sensor detects humidity, PM 2.5, PM 10, noise nearby this sensor. And during the patrol process, it could sense the environmental issues, specifically the specific location of these issues on the block. So each block, it can sense all the data nearby. So after the issues were found, the patrol staff could use the carpet to record the details, and the office center could receive the situation on the dashboard and coordinate the resources, like the people, the cars, before it actually affects citizens. So by doing this system, a lot of environmental issues are discovered and solved before the citizens becomes the sensor to be affected by these environmental problems. So on the aspect of livelihood, because last year Shuangjing and other neighborhood are facing the urgent requirement to improve the barrier-free environment of the block, to provide an inclusive built environment for 2022, the Winter Olympics. To achieve the purpose, so we generate a general survey on it, except the field survey. The survey result is mainly supported by a smart cane, which use GPS and microwave radar to support the trip of the blind people. So blind people can use this when it close to some complex situations. It will make some noise to remind the blind people. So except to support them, we also use data to analysis their working environment, the complexity. But when they stop or they work in a slow pace, so these are also all means that the complexity of this environment is there. So under the support of these data results, we finish the barrier-free evaluation quickly. So now they are trying to fix all the complex problems. So in the public service areas, all of their main projects are run by our brain to evaluate their effectiveness, whether it can solve more problem for the people, or whether the accessibility is increasing, is highly increased. So last year, one of the typical case is this Baizuan Park, citizen park, close to the downtown. So this is also supported by our system. So on the aspect of the neighborhood renewal, which is often regarded as the primary aspect of the of a neighborhood office, we implemented and landed various of public spaces by the method of evidence-based design. Under the support of the neighborhood brain, we built a lot of many of the public spaces. The typical one is the one called the well-known one. So firstly, we did a lot of observation of the activities on the space, the time, the age of them, the stopover, whether they are stopover activities or they are passing the space, all of the status. Then we input different we use the agent-based model to monitoring the relationship between the space facilities and the activities. Then we input different design projects to stimulate which one attracts more people to visit space and stay here for maybe a longer time period. Under the support of the stimulation result, we finish the design and significantly they improve the volatility of the space. As we can see from the after evaluation, there are more people come to this place and stay in this place. And for the middle-aged people and the young people, they stay here averagely for 30 minutes. 30 minutes is much longer before the place was renewed. So currently we are trying to put a lot of sensors to trace the usage of each facility. And the result is real-timely updated on the dashboard. So, and finally, except the different aspect, we also can quickly respond to the annual emphasis of the street, such as the waste sorting issues and the impedance prevention at the community level. Because of our great foundation of data management, these works are supported quickly during the last year. So these are all the examples. So finally, after the 1 year later, after we try to evaluate it again about the sustainable level of Shuangjing. So the significant improvement happened on the environmental governance, public space, and the planning and public participation. So on the other side, the sustainable transport is a little bit less developed during the last year. But if anyone been to Shuangjing in Beijing, you can know the situation is complex in Shuangjing areas. And also for a neighborhood or community level, transport issues is a long-term project to be aspect to be improved maybe. So finally, in November 2020, in Chengdu, on this conference, we received the significance of the Sustainable Development Pilot. So it means the first phase of our practice is by some means successful maybe. So this is the whole practice of our project. So if we look back the whole project, we think we try to we have a clear target at the beginning. So all the actions are based on these targets. We develop the smart system, the brain, based on the basis of understanding on the community governance. So instead of putting a lot of sensors or put a lot of numbers on dashboard, our practice is highly connected with the governance scenario. And also during the whole practice, many of the sustainable values are attempted to be covered, like the inclusive, the environmental friendly, the participatory, and the human base. That's my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Haokun. Very impressive work, not only about the big picture you gave us, but also about like how detailed these different actions you have touched upon in shaping that picture. A quick question for myself, if I can take that privilege to ask. So, because you mentioned like the before and after assessment of the SDG goals, or say the SDG scores based on the UN framework, I was just wondering, like for that like 1 year period, so how do you measure that difference? You measure that based on your simulations, or you measured them on based on the empirical data you collected from different sources?
Most of our big data evaluation is based on the open data online, or the just the big data. All the data covers the human science ages. The period is the first evaluation. It shows the level at the spring 2019, and the second one shows the year after. The year after, yeah, the spring or the summer of 2020. Okay, so it's the difference within 1 year.
Great, and also I spotted the quick question from one of the audience. So is there any further information about the net logo model shown in your presentation? I think he's referring to the simulation models, like the agent-based ones. Can you specify that more?
Because when we firstly, at the beginning of when we try to design that space, there is a camera, surveillance camera on that next to that space can show. So by the data of that surveillance camera, we can analyze the usage of each facility on different period for different people, like elder people or children. So we recorded them clearly, and it reflects the current relationship between the facilities and the different people. And then we try to build this data in the net logo to record the relationship, and to stimulate that if some facilities were added, is there any changes on the volatility on different group of people. So this is how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Professor Mao, should we move to our discussion session so that we can invite Professor Pan to comment on the presentation of the three speakers?
Okay, so it's a very inspiring presentation. And we can find a lot of efforts. We try to well manage and governance our city, and various new technology challenge, and also the ambitious. So for the first one, I think it's quite is try to identify the potential of the city for further development or something like this. And they use a lot of the new source of data. And in China, we already have some of the old source. And the problem is those source, the update of source is slowly. And also maybe some of the new information is missing. So they provide some way of to understand the dynamics of the evolution of the different city in three dimensions. You mentioned about the breakthrough and diversity and innovation. So it's interesting. And the question is how we can combine this new source of data analyzed with the old one. So because we know what the old one tell us, and we are not 100% sure what's the new data source will give as some of the inside information. So if we can combine those two kind of data together, maybe more detailed information we can understand. And for the second and the third is about the brain, so artificial brain. So it's quite a hot topic in China. So we use these words quite a long time. I think maybe from 2007 or 2008. So some city began to talk about the smart city or and intelligent transport even long before. How we can use new technology to improve the government service. We can find two approach. One is in China is problem driven, like in Frank Zhao had mentioned some of the civil service, like welfare director, and also a lot of community service, community-based service now is well digitalized. So you can reserve some kind of service, or you can use a mobile phone, or you can even combine with we call the local community office with some remote district office, so they can help you for some of civil service. I think this is really really help the people, because for maybe 10 years ago, it's really take a long time for some of the civil service. And the second, I think the major improvement in China is for the hospital. So previously, the hospital, if you want to go to doctor for the big hospital, is really terrible experience. So you were waiting for a long queue, even wait for the whole night to get to reserve for registration. Nowadays, it's very convenient. So they have a lot of machine, and also you can use a mobile phone. And after the first visit, you can also communicate with the doctor with the mobile phone. I think this is really improve the service of the medical service. And also for Hangzhou, they claim to have the traffic brain. It seems to be not so easy, because if we reduce congestion, but the question is how we can also reduce the demand for travel. So we need a consistent the policies, not only one technology. And for the also a lot of city government, because innovation was encouraged by central government. We have the one logo called the Internet Plus. So everything should be linked with the internet. So so for some city, they are more technology driven. So they try to use the technology to solve some of the problem, and some work quite good, like the security monitoring. So it's very in China, it's very safe. If for the delivery service, they park their electrical bike unlocked in the front of your door. So they not care about, not too much worry about the thief to take his, something from the electrical bike, because a lot of monitor. So this is something positive. And also like in during the pandemic in China, during the lockdown time, we have a lot of local community has been closed. So this kind of service also really help the people with difficulty. And the question is if is from the technical point of view. So we need to discuss with the citizen what's their constraint, how this technology can solve this problem, and how this technology really can connect the people together to make us more powerful, and also like in China, the retirement age is not so old. So actually, a lot of senior citizens have a lot of energy and intelligence. They would like to contribute to the society, but the problem is they do not know how they can be organized. And something like this, I think we need to listen to citizens, what's they really want the technology to help them for some the challenge, or they are willing contribution to our society. I think all the three presentations are very good, and it's also inspired me a lot of for the future research. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Pan. And now should I invite all the three speakers to respond to Professor Pan in terms of his respective questions to each of you. And before we opening the floor for the Q&A for the wide audience. So shall we start from Jieling? If you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I will answer Teacher Pan's question. Because in our evaluation methodology, the system is composed with lots of indicators, and there are many. There are some of old source data, in it, just like GDP and population and GDP growth, population growth. Yeah, I think that those are maybe old source. We made the evaluation system just with five 5 first level indicator and 17 second level indicator and 79 third level indicators. Those indicators are always in third level indicator. Yeah, so they really in our system and used with new data. Yeah. Yeah, and now in recent days, we are making some research on industry, and we found that in industrial research, those statistic data, just as old source data, is very useful. It's very useful in researching the industry, just like the manufacturing volume and growth rate, and maybe industrial park. Yeah, we always will search for those statistic data. Yeah.
Thank you. Like the cost of living, and for different social class, because you mentioned about the innovation. So the cost of living is also one of the key issues. I'm not sure if the new source of data already can find some clue to analyze. And we have discussed with some colleagues in Shanghai that found is very difficult to recruit young, intelligent and people, because of the cost is also a problem. So.
Yeah, very insightful observations. Yeah, Frank, would you like to add something to the discussion?
Oh yeah. Just some quick response. Professor Pan mentioned about whether the traffic brain in Hangzhou was a success or not. It's a very tricky question, because traffic jam or congestion is it's very complicated. It has to do with the infrastructure there, how many subways are there in Hangzhou. It has to do with the demand. It has to do with the car industry situation in China as well. So I had some conversations with some of the officials there. They would say that they wouldn't claim that the traffic brain was a success in terms of dealing with traffic jam, but they would say that at least they started to see the traffic situation from a very different perspective. They start to think about maybe we should focus on how many cars at the moment on the street, rather than the whole how many cars a city has totally. So they love to they prefer to mention the perspective shift from that experience. Also, I'm very interested in the concept of citizen participation, because the struggles I realize in Hangzhou and also in Shanghai, some of the cases we've been involved, is that how to make citizens more involved into the process. Because right now it's more about how to digitalize the municipality, how to digitalize the municipal government. We rarely talk about how the individuals could use the city as almost like a platform. And when we talk about how the government uses the data to make people's life easier, we rarely talk about how the citizens can use the data from the government to make their own decisions, such as buying a house. Should I buy a house in Pudong or should I buy a house in Puxi? Maybe there are some data I would love to look at. But for that part, that's something that is missing. Another point is that when we talk about citizen participation, we also have to think about, do they have the right to not participate? Do they have the right to not let others to collect their data? And then it goes to the very tricky problem of what counts as what's the definition of privacy? Because I realize people have very different definition of data privacy. What counts as individual data? What counts as public data? So these are relative philosophical problems we are going to face. But these so-called philosophical problems are actually very related to our daily life, especially in the near future. Because if you talk to the people on the street, they are concerned about face scan. They do concern about their personal data.
So Chinese people are not so much worried about the privacy because some reason. And so the question is how we can help the people with this new technology. So to make them less worried and to make them feel much certainty in the future, and they will be more happy living in the city. So this is I think important for the new technology. The new technology is not only from the top down. So we should think about how from the bottom up and how we can combine community together for the future. So we cannot design. I think we cannot design for what the future will be, but we should discuss with the people and what's their belief and what's their vision, and then we can work together.
Yeah, and I think
I totally agree with Professor Pan that we should let people to participate more, and because currently it's more about the government or companies like us imagine like what's good for the people. Yes. And culturally, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that Chinese people or American people have a certain preference. That's a bit extreme. We maybe there's a cultural tendency, but every individual is very different. And we have to listen to maybe even just a minority of that population. Maybe they have a different view of data and privacy. Yeah.
Yeah, and the conversation about the citizens actually to the third questions Professor Pan raised is about like how to connect people together using these technologies. Haokun, if you can respond or say a few words about that.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pan. I think the professor listed like two questions or two discussion topics. One is about the new urban data and the traditional urban data. Another is about how smart cities connected with the people, citizens, human skills. I think these two questions are connected, or they can answer combinedly, because I think new urban data, new urban ages is about a human base, because most of the traditional data are related to how the government built this city. Are more related to like the standard of construction, standard of build this city, the record of the population, buildings, lands. But the new urban ages, the internet recorded many of the individual messages. So most of the new urban data are related to the human itself. So it recorded whether people like to use this place, whether people give a good comments, whether the shops are built in this street, whether this street are utility or not. So these two views are totally different, because there is a standard in Beijing, we call in Chinese 七有五性三感. The 七有 is the 7 axis. It means the 7 standard of how government should build this city. The 5 expectations, 五性, 5 expectations is roughly whether this city is convenience or or its utility or some kind. And the sangan, it means the three feelings. It means how the citizen can feel the city well. So these aspects are totally different. That maybe if you build a city well, you have a good planning, but whether the good planning becomes the convenience or the utility, whether the convenience and utilities can make people feel safe, feel satisfied. This is the complex questions. But the new urban data try to understand the human-based skills, try to make the analysis or the functions or the applications more close to the humans, to the citizens. So I think they are connected because of the new urban data and the new resources. All the designs are more human basis. And because our applications, our practices are mainly focused on the community scale. So I think no matter like us focus on the governance applications or like the Frank's practice are more focused on some functions and some about the smart applications. I think they are all close to the community skills and the neighborhood skills, because in our experience, community skills are the fundamental connection with the citizens. So all the issues they are make them crazy are close to the fundamental issues of the humans, like their complaints about the environment, their complaints about the urban management. So try to solve these problems, try to make people feel convenience is the way to make their to make your application close to the human skill. And finally, I think because during my speech, I mentioned that we try to both cover the smart governance and the participatory governance, but for time reason, I didn't discuss a lot about our participatory governance practices. But we always think that smart governance cannot solve all the problem lonely. Smart governance should always combine with the participatory governance. So you should both try to make the city smart, also try to organize a lot of participatory events to hear their voice. So this is my understanding about how to reach the human scale and the new urban data. Yeah, thank you.
Really interesting points of views from both the speakers and our discussant. I think we can now open the floor for questions. So from the audience side, please feel free to start to text in your questions in the Q&A box, or just raise your hand to show up and to ask questions directly to our audio panelists. Professor Mao, I monitor that there could be there are around 2 questions in the chat box. Would you like to start by to relaying the questions from the audience to the presenters, or would you like me to relay these questions?
Yes, please continue to in charge the discussion, and but I also have a few words for comments today the topic. And today the topic is about the data, the city analysis. And this is a data world, and also a data China. Today we already have so many data, and we really need this data. And we need the population data, urbanization data, the economic and technology data. And all the data developed very fast. But the question is why we need so many data, and what is its advantages and the disadvantages. Recent a few years, things high-tech orientated this direction go very fast. People very eager want to use so many data to do something. But today, maybe we should pay attention to another side if we're talking about urban data. And some people really don't like so many data. And people question this data. It's quality of the data. And it's a good use, but also some bad use data. So we have to very carefully to think about this data technology. And especially today, this 3 presentation is focused in this practice aspect. And for example, the first speaker, Jieling, talking about the business attractiveness, the ranking. And we have many ranking systems today. For example, in the university, as I think Professor Pan knows very much, the university ranking again and again. And also the faculty, also the ranking, and the student with the ranking. So we understand that it's some point for ranking and push people go fast, go to the high level. But I think we should very carefully for this ranking. For example, in my class, I really don't like give a student ranking. I say all the students is the same, and you come here and get the knowledge, and you think about how to use this knowledge. That's all the good. But if you very quiet, peacefully sitting in the classroom, that's okay. That's so I don't like this. It's the first thing. And today, from the third speaker, we know you want to innovate or develop new urban science. And I appreciate the words of new urban science. But I also hope to still think about the old urban science. Like the Professor Han mentioned, we have the traditional normal data, and we have a lot of new data. The question is not instead this old one, but how to combine them together, and all the old people and the young people, old generation and the young generation, old data and the new data, they should work together and to push. We have the better future, and like the topic, this new urban world is need both. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Mao. I'm not sure whether these speakers will take these as comments or questions, but if Jieling, you can respond to the first questions, like why do you, why your group want to use these ranking systems and the motivations behind, and what would you like to do that in the future? That we appreciate it.
I think the ranking is just a tool because as we are a media company, and sometimes we want to do some branding, and the internet companies, they give us their data, their urban data, just for also for brand promotion. Yeah. So we just start from the ranking, but after ranking, we want to see some development trends and some urban stories, and we will find more and more rising cities. That's our, we will put more emphasis on the research, but not for ranking. Ranking just is a tool, and then more and more people know that there are so many Chinese cities are rising, and on the contrary, for example, some northwest cities are northeast cities are sometimes they performed not so good, and we just want the urban system citizens to know there's more and more southern cities, maybe western cities, they perform better than we imagine. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jieling. And Haokun, would you like to say a few words about in response to Professor Mao's questions on new versus old, like in terms of the data, like the new city signs, things like that?
Yes. Thanks a lot, Professor Mao. I totally respect and agree your opinion. So what I try to present is that new data give us a new view, like give us more resources to see the human skill, to see the people's changes. But traditional data are, of course, very important. They are the basic of the city, the frameworks. But also traditional data sometimes is hard to get by the company like us. So sometimes the sharing situation should be better. So yeah, this is my response. Of course, I agree that both the new data and the traditional data are important, and both the new planning views and the traditional planning views are important. They should be combined. They should be combined together. Yeah, thank you.
Frank, do you want to add something to the conversation?
Yes, I'm going to respond to two questions. The first question is about why do we use data, right? That's one of the questions from the audience. It's very simple. I think since the time of Renaissance, since the time of Newton, it's really about using numbers to solve scientific problems. Even though, let's say, if you go to Harvard or you go to Columbia to pursue a PhD in political science or sociology, you have to deal with a lot of numbers, data, and statistics. So this is just the trend of life. But this is still a very good question, because I realize in media or in our daily life, the idea of big data is gradually become almost like an ideology. So every time people are gonna say, my argument is correct because I used numbers. But what kind of number are you using? This is the second question we always have to ask. And there are many issues that is not solely due to numbers. For example, basketball. Houston Rockets, their former manager, I think his name is Murray or something. He uses big data for basketball games all the time, but Houston Rockets never reached the Western Conference final for so many years. So we have to be aware of the overemphasis of data usage. The second question, I think, is from Bilibili, right? It's from the Bilibili question. It's about, can you, so I can't see the question, sorry.
Yeah, probably I can leave this question in a later stage, because
okay, I'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. I also spotted actually one of the previous questions asking from the raised from the audience. Yue Ying, are you still there, or do you want to show up to direct ask this question to our first speaker?
Yes, hi. Actually, so I'd like to thank you all for your great presentation, and I'm very enjoyed the session. So my first question about for Jieling is that so personally, I'm a PhD candidate in the University of Cambridge, and I'm dealing with index or to say rankings for the whole UK, the poverty rankings. I hope you can hear me. So my question for you is that does the innovation ranking include the consideration of policy support from government? And another point is that actually the ranking itself is actually provide momentum for people to congregate or to move to the cities, to the like top ranked ones. So for example, the ranking says, okay, Shanghai is the top one, then people would normally congregate to Shanghai. So the ranking itself actually contributes to the things you are ranking. Not mentioned, the ranking is about the activeness. So would you like to answer it? I'm not sure if you understand my question clearly, if you can hear me.
There's some background noise, so if you can summarize your question in one sentence.
I'm sorry. So simplify that. My question is that, does the index you mentioned include the consideration of policy support?
So basically, the question from Yue is that whether the index or the ranking systems you are developing and include the policy support from a government, or consider that part.
It's difficult to digitize the policy in our system, but I think it's included in our maybe in our second indicator, one of our second level indicators. That means talent attractiveness. Yeah, talent attractive. We know many governments now in those 2 years, they made a lot of effort to attractive talents in their own city. Just like, for example, Xi'an. Xi'an in those 2 years, it has maybe more than 10% growth of its population. Yeah, we know Xi'an's government, they made a lot of effort. Yeah, and then so the talent attractiveness of Xi'an rise very rapidly. I think many governments are asking talents to live in their cities and then start their own business in their cities. And I think Zhou and Xiamen, yeah, lots of cities are doing the same things. Yeah. So those cities are also in our fifth indicator, future potential. Those cities performs very well. Yeah. I have another question for the third speaker, but since people cannot hear me clearly, I will type my questions in the chat box. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally fine. That's fine.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
While we are waiting for Yue to typing in her question, I will ask a question that is from one of our Bilibili audience. And I think that question is to do with all the three speakers, although Frank might have like more to say about that particular part. The question is that actually there are a lot of giant international internet companies in China, like Alibaba, like Huawei, Tencent, Jingdong, so you name it. So they started to step into the field of the smart city, and they have very, very strong urban computing power, but relatively they know relatively less about the city planning or the city management itself. So from your perspective, it's because the audience understand that most of you are like in the startup companies, although I know some startup companies have grown into a very large scale now. But from your side, so compared to these giant internet companies, so what's your strength and what's your weakness, and how do you see the difference between your work and theirs? So if I can invite Frank to have a first go on that question.
Okay, so BAT is they are stepping everywhere, right? So if you live in China, you know that the model is pretty universal. Those big tech companies, it's more efficient for them to focus on IoT selling in the field of smart cities. But also, I think recently, if you look at Google, their Sideworks, their sub company Sideworks, they hired former urban planners, even former I think vice mayor from New York to be the CEO of the company, and also Alibaba, they have some staff from the urban planning area as well. So it's intertwining right now. It's really intertwining right now. But the larger picture is that it's not worth for them to have too many urban experts, to hire too many urban experts to do the job. It's cheaper for them to communicate with companies such as us. This is the reason why we exist. I think this is one of the major reasons why some of the other participants, their startups exist as well. In terms of comparative advantage, it's really just division of labor. So they do the IoT part, they have the branding, maybe many of the projects are in their names, but the actual solution part, consulting part, and the system part are done by the other companies such as us. So it's more of a division of labor, and we need their brand as well. So
yeah, if we can then turn to Haokun and then Jieling to respond to this question. Yeah, Haokun.
The biggest difference is they are cheaper. No. Firstly, I'm not totally agree that they have little knowledge about cities and urban analysis. I think maybe 3 years or 5 years ago, I will have the same opinion. But now they are trying to recruit many of the urban planners to their companies to enhance their knowledge of cities and urban analysis. And also they have a lot of cooperations with the universities, the research corporations. So they are improving. So last year, Tenant published a report called VCity Smart City Report, some kind of that. I think the quality is high and it's cooperated with the Tsinghua University. So I think they are improving. So it's not in the traditional way that they know little knowledge about city and urban planning. And also, I think the main difference is our skills are much more smaller than them. So we can do things like a lab, like do more innovation thing. Like when we do Shuangjing, we try to make it as a benchmark or a sample room. So we do a lot of innovation thing. We have some effort, but many of them actually failure. So with this kind of innovation practice, maybe some of the new things can emerge or produced. But for the big companies, maybe they are more responsible for doing things with more consideration or try to make some standards. So we have the different rule, I think. So I think it's a duty for the small group company like us to do the innovation thing, try to produce something nobody have done before, maybe. So we'll try to do this in the following years, maybe. Yeah.
And Jieling.
I'd like to invite our product manager, Bo Wen, to answer this question. He has a lot of practice experience in this field. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bo Wen. I would like to answer this question because I'm the product manager of Xinjiang. I would like to say we have some connection and cooperation with Alibaba. So when we are talking about the smart city projects, I think there are some difference between us and the internet company. I can describe us as a medium company or institute. The first difference is that we have different rules because for the internet company, they have more experience like in the technology and in the visualization and in the design of the big screen and like the cooperation with local governments. But for us, we have more experience to know about this city, what kind of index or what kind of data could describe the city's economy and the education and the environment and a lot of stuff things. And but here the thing, we have this gap between us and the internet company. But this gap is opportunity for us to cooperate because we can display the role as like the COE, and they can they can be the role of the technology leader or the design leader. So we have this opportunity to cooperate. The second difference that we have different work model. Because they have, like I mentioned in the front, they have more experience to like working with our governments because they have a lot of staff and a lot of time to a lot of salesmen to work with the governments, so they know their basic demand of the smart cities. But for us, we have different work mode because we are an institute. As an institute, we have to look at the books, and we have to look into a lot of papers to know to begin our work. I think these are two main differences of us and the internet company. Thanks.
Thank you, Bowen, for your participation in our discussion with your colleagues. So since time is running up, I just want to raise like one final question, like just for like the comments and the conclusions for each of our panelists, as there are three of us from the industry actually, from startup companies and media companies, and actually our chair and discussant is from the university. So I just want to ask, like, if you can say something to each other, like, how do you see, like, there are any future opportunities for the future collaboration in between academia and the practice? And if so, how? So hope that is a not too large question, but hopefully if you can say something, like say 1 or 2 sentences about that to summarize this session. Shall we start from Haokun this time, and then Frank, and then Jieling, and then the discussant and the chair? Haokun, over to you.
Hi, the question is really a little bit big, but I think with the basis that our value is the same, our methodology is similar, it's all related to the new urban science. I think the cooperation is available. Like I know that during the serious period of the virus, like the beginning of the 2020, we do some of the response to try to make the community more convenience to record the people, to try to help the neighborhood or community level. I think the company of Frank Metro, they also do the similar thing to support the communities. So I think with the different with the similar value and the similar like way of thinking things, I think for many skills we can have a cooperation maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Perhaps one sentence.
One sentence. I would, for the methodologies, I believe the people on the ground maybe have more ideas for that. But for the academics, I prefer them to spend more time thinking about these big questions, philosophical questions, principle questions, because we are going to reach the stage of a very smart society, but there will be so many other problems coming up, and how do we deal with it? For us, it's about making money, right? It's about making money and help our customers. But I think it's really the academics' job to give us a more moral vision for the future.
Thank you, Jieling.
With 3 more and more open data, we need more open data, more cooperation, and more deep practice. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And Professor Pan, would you like to say something like one or two
sentences? Yes, it's very glad to know the efforts try to help the urban planner. So we try to understand the city from a different perspective and point of view. And we would like also to contribute from academic value of these efforts and also the methodology. I think in China, local government is very strong and powerful, but sometimes they need some academic orientation. Otherwise, maybe we have too much lesson to learn. So it's a good opportunity to know your work and look for some occasion to work together.
Professor Mao.
The first, thank you very much for this 3 excellent presentation and all very good discussion from Professor Pan. And what I hope for today we're talking for the urban data and is we need from the technical orientated slowly go to the real social requirement oriented, that the data for the people and the urban for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. So my heartfelt thank you actually to Professor Mao, Professor Pan, the 3 speakers for insights and the thought-provoking discussions. And I'd also like to thank all the audience for participating in this session and engaging with our distinguished speakers. Before formally closing the session, another thing to note, because the entire workshop is being recorded. So please feel free to tell your colleagues that they can watch the proceedings afterwards on our own webpage. Thank you all. I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. Jieling. So sorry for running a bit late. So he will help us to host the next session, Urban Transport in Societal Context, which will be led by Professor Yoshi Hayashi and his colleagues. Over to you. Or should we have like several minutes for refreshment?